backlash against the issue of executive overreach because yesterday the Supreme Court ruled that the president's actions were illegal when he appointed members to the National Labor Relations Board in 2012 without Senate confirmation. So that makes, by one count, at least 13 unanimous Supreme Court rulings that have gone against the Obama administration since 2012. That's in a piece by John Fund. Charles Krauthammer discussing the impact of that decision from the Supreme Court yesterday on Special Report. Here he is.
I think this is a stinging rebuke to Obama overreach in general, and I think it will have implications for other cases. Remember the argument Democrats have made up to now with the Boehner lawsuit, which is going to challenge overreach in other areas. This is simply a partisan attack on the president. What the court is saying, this is a constitutional travesty. I think this bodes well for the Boehner lawsuit challenging the president's overreach.
That's the question here. Brad Blakeman joins us now, former Deputy Assistant to President George W. Bush, and Stephen Sigmund was the Communications Director for former New Jersey Governor Jon Corzine. Gentlemen, welcome. Good to have you both here.
Thanks.
You know, it's not just conservatives that are talking out about this. Let's listen to this soundbite from Jonathan Turley as well.
The president is now asserting a level of unilateral authority that dwarfs most of, if not all of his predecessors. He is creating what I've called an Uber presidency.
So that's from Turley, not a conservative. He's a constitutional attorney. Stephen, what do you think about that?
Well, I wish it were more of an Uber presidency and we had better lawyers. I mean, I'm glad they're not charging by the hour. So, you know, clearly the administration did not have a good week at the Supreme Court. But the notion that he's sort of usurping power by recess appointments is kind of absurd. And if in fact it's true, then his predecessors like Ronald Reagan and George Bush must have been committing a coup d'etat because they had about 240 recess appointments compared to 26 by the Obama administration.
The question that the court was dealing with, and I don't really want to get mired in you know, the legality of this, but it was a very specific decision that was based on the amount of time. They said if they're in recess for 3 days, you can't really call that a recess. And in the other cases, there was no case brought that said that wasn't true. So they said he was overstepping his bounds in that regard. Brad, you know, what do you make of that decision yesterday, and what are the larger implications is one of the big questions here.
Well, the larger implication is the president himself. This is an act that the president did, not something that he can blame on his agency. And you see, Stephen today is not blaming the president. He's blaming his attorneys. He must have had bad attorneys. But it's always somebody else's fault. But politically, this is very damaging for the president because this is a presidential action that he took. He also taunted Congress. He told Congress, I have a pen and a phone. And basically what he's telling Congress is, if you don't like what I'm doing, sue me. And we do. We sue you on health care, we sue you on immigration, EPA, and the list goes on. But as Charles Krauthammer pointed out, this sets up Boehner's suit very nicely because the attack that Boehner will bring will be more specific and more egregious than what the Supreme Court has just decided.
The Boehner suit is about executive authority. Right, and executive decisions. And the Obama administration has instituted that less than any president since Grover Cleveland. The Boehner lawsuit is completely frivolous, and what it's about.
You don't even know what the Boehner lawsuit is.
Of course it is about executive authority.
No, you don't. He hasn't filed his complaint
That's
yet.
What he said. That's what he said. That's what he said it's going to be about. And look, this is a sop to his base, which he is scared about now because they just took out his number 2. The Republicans.
So you're saying the Supreme Court is complicit in helping Boehner? It was the most liberal
they didn't. The Supreme Court has made no decision in the Boehner case because he hasn't filed it, as you just said.
Present case of the NLRB.
Yeah, the present case said that you couldn't do recess appointments in anything under 10-day recess. Right. And it protected the authority for doing it over 10-day recess. And this president has done that significantly less than previous presidents.
Yeah,
no, it's not the amount.
I want to point to something here because this is a very interesting fact. Historically, the Justice Department has won about 70% of its cases before the High Court. But in each of the last 3 terms, the court has ruled against the administration a majority of the time. So one of the questions that raises for me is the whole issue of checks and balances. So isn't it inherent, isn't it incumbent upon Congress when they think that the executive branch, whether it's a Democratic president or a Republican president for that matter, when they think they're overreaching, aren't they serving the people by bringing that up to the court and saying, hey, you know, we're supposed to all be equal, these three branches, and we feel that that ground is being lost? Stephen, isn't that something that's important to you as an American?
Look, I think that would be true if, in fact, Congress and the House Republicans were doing the rest of their job. And instead, what they're doing is just trying to use these kind of games and gimmicks to destroy this presidency.
No, but that wasn't my question to you. My question was to you.
I hear you, and I'm
as an American citizen, Stephen, no, answer my question as a person, just you, not politically. Does it matter to you if you believe that the executive branch, whether it's Republican or Democrat, is it incumbent upon Congress? Is it their responsibility to make sure they push back if they think the executive is gaining too much power? Is it?
Yes, as long as they're doing the rest of their job, which is legislating and actually leading to actually trying to form a functional government, which they are not doing.
Well, you know, I mean, look at how long we had no budget, and the question can be raised for Congress as well in terms of getting anything done. I think, Brad, people look at this government and they say, you know, things are out of whack. The judicial branch is not bringing cases that perhaps they should be bringing. When you look at IRS, when you look at Benghazi, and they know that they're basically, you know, thrusting their fists against the wall for nothing, and that nothing will ever happen. Congress doesn't come forward with budgets, and you know, you've got the executive branch overreaching. Are things out of whack?
Yeah, well, look, the most dangerous president is the one who knows no limits to his authority. And he will exceed his authority and basically says, I'm going to do what I want to do until I'm stopped from doing it. But as you point out, Martha, our government only works when there's a healthy respect for the co-equal branches of government. And Boehner has no choice. Either he can accept the president's unconstitutional actions or he can stop it. He has an obligation, because the Speaker represents every member of Congress, not just Republicans, to make sure that his institution and his body is respected and that the rule of law is followed. And when that does not happen, he has an obligation to make sure that there's a petition made to the courts to right the wrong. And that's the way it should be for Republicans and for Democrats.
I completely agree with that. What I don't agree with is that what Republicans are doing is trying to make this government dysfunctional. Part of American exceptionalism is a government that works and is stable and that provides the foundation for the private sector.
The president should stop acting unilaterally and work with Congress.
Exactly. No, the Congress should stop trying to destroy this guy and work with the president. So I think we're going to disagree on that.
I think it's incumbent upon these branches to put that pressure on each other to make sure that they're upholding their constitutional role. And that may be what we're seeing here. Thank you very much, Stephen. Thank you, Brad. Good to see you both.
20 minutes before the hour, the Supreme Court